Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bedomy, and this is The Incredible Adventures of Van Helsing. Mouthful of a title, I admit, but it is a very fun action RPG you can purchase for a relatively reasonable price on Steam. I would recommend that you buy this on sale, though, and if you're in a position, purchase the director's or the final cut, because with the director's and final cut, you will get most of the DLC into your included to your game as well. As you can see, I purchased the director's cut. Yeah, I think I have the director's cut, so I have two additional classes for my character, as well as Blue Blood skill tree unlocked for my spectral companion, Lady Katarina, over here. If you purchase the final cut, you will get extra items as well as some additional skins and items for your multiplayer or single player progression, as you can clearly see. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of this practice, but considering that Neocore Games is a pretty solid developer when it comes to their games, I mean, they have a full trilogy of Van Helsing adventures, and they're all pretty solid action RPGs in their own right. I'm not happy about the DLC and this director's cut thing, but for the gameplay on its own, it's a pretty solid game. And since we're on the topic of the developers, this was developed by Neocore Games in 2013 and released for the PC at that time. And afterwards, it was released on Xbox One in 2014 2015. It was released on Xbox in 2015 and for PlayStation 4 in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. Now, Neocore Games, you might know them as the developers behind a pretty popular Warhammer action RPG called Inquisitor Martyr. And also, you might recognize them as the developers behind the King Arthur Legend of Champions or War Game. I'm not sure what's the title of it exactly, but it is a King Arthur inspired RTS with elements of RPG, somewhat similar to Warcraft 3, to be honest. I haven't played that one, but I think I did get a copy of it somewhere. So I'll probably do a rookie review about it later on. Anyway, let's not waste too much time on the introductions. Let's just take a look at the options menu and then discuss a bit more about the gameplay itself. As you can see, we have 4 categories of options: gameplay, which lets us highlight items and adjust our user interface, as well as censor blood and turn off auto equipping for our character. You can also choose the language and map opacity, although I think the language of the game should probably be in audio, but that's just me. As for audio, I really have to compliment the developers for a couple of things. First and foremost, every volume has a separate slider, which is always not a good thing in my book, but I really have to respect their attention to detail when it came to sound effects. Not only do you have regular sound effects, that sounded stupid when I put it like that, but the footsteps, grass, winds and such, where your blade swings, that sort of thing you have, those are usual effects, but you also have bell sounds, such as enemies snarling or growling when it comes to monsters. And you also have terrain sounds, which is pretty good attention to detail. I mean, and sound design is really top-notch in my book, as well as the voice acting in the game itself. But I really have to pay compliments to the sound designers. Actually, audio engineers. I'm not sure at this point, but basically, the sound is very well done. I mean, as you run through the cobblestone floors, you will hear the distinct clack of boots running that are going across the tiles. And once you step into a puddle, you'll hear a distinct splash, and so on. If you're going through the grass, you'll hear, well, not that, but the rustling of the grass as you're as you're walking through it. And the same goes for weapon slashes and impact. It really immerses you into the combat. Same goes for animation, same goes for the audio. The audio really sells the combat immersion. Okay, that didn't sound right, but you really get the feeling that the weapons you're holding and using are doing some damage. And while we're on the subject of audio, you can turn on subtitles for the in-game cutscenes and the cutscenes themselves, which is always nice. Video options, you have two categories. Regular video options, which allow you to adjust the resolution, brightness, contrast, saturations, and such, as well as choose your preferred quality levels of details, or you can go to the advanced mode and adjust every detail to your own personal preference. Now, this is one problem with the game is, and that should be addressed here and now, is if you try to adjust too many things at once, the game will just freeze up and crash, and the changes will not be saved. So, my only fix so far has been to go for 2 or 3 specific changes, and then turn them on, and then leave options menu, start it up again, so that the changes don't overload the whole game itself. It's stupid. It's infuriating, and for some weird reason, this is just a little bit of trivia on my part. For some reason, I tried to record this 3 times already, and the game always had a bit of a weird mixture. Something didn't work well with my recording software for some reason, so the video quality would just turn into a white or red screen for some reason. I don't know why. Anyway, apart from options menus overloading the game system and crashing it, the video options themselves are pretty good. Just a word of advice. I have a pretty decent computer myself, but yeah, I would not recommend that you play this with crossfire optimization and anti-aliasing and parallax mapping turned on. And if you can, keep this on low or medium. For some reason, this if you try to go any higher or turn these things on, the game will just freeze up and will not start up if it crashes. You'll have to start it up in a windowed mode, and that's infuriating in my book. I really want to like this game. I do like it for the gameplay itself, but the options menus are a nightmare to deal with. So yeah, that's about it when it comes to video options. As for the controls, as you can see, every action has a separate, not slider, a separate button, which you can customize to your own personal preference, which is always nice. And word of advice: if you have a controller attached to your PC, or a wireless or a wired one, unplug it before you start the game. The game will recognize the controller on Steam at least, and it will automatically disable the mouse and keyboard input. So you'll have to randomly guess which button does what, because there are no button prompts if the controller is enabled, and the controller is enabled by default. So for your first play, when you first start it up, when you start it up for the first time, unplug your controller and go to options menus and disable enable controller automatically. It will save you some hassle in the long run. Well, yes, as you can probably see, the game looks beautiful, and the sound design and music are very well done. But some technical difficulties are present at the moment. And considering how old the game was when it was released, and with the director's cut they still haven't fixed these issues, I am not very pleased with this, and that's one of the reasons why I would recommend that you buy this on sale, or a Christmas sale, or a very big holiday sale when it's fairly cheap. I I want to support the developers because they really do make good games, but they really need to resolve these technical issues. Anyway, that's it for the options menu. As I already explained, there are a couple of DLCs included, and if you can't purchase the final cut or the director's cut, which will open up most of these DLCs for you automatically. As for the ones I own, as you can see, I have Arcane Mechanics and Thaumaturge, which are basically classes for your character of Abraham Helsing. You can, by default, you only have the Hunter class, which is a mixture between melee and ranged fighter. Well, Thaumaturge has as you can see by the image, he has a pretty big focus on magic and trickery. I haven't played him just yet. I only played this one up. I mean, I did play this game before at my friend's place, and when it was released, so I only have the Hunter experience so far. But Thaumaturge and Arcane Mechanic do play in a distinct. They do have a distinct way of playing. For example, Arcane Mechanic, as the name suggests, is a long-range focus specialist that uses traps and explosives in his arsenal as well. He also has a pretty somewhat decent, I won't say magical properties, but he is capable of using magic. Anyway, for your first playthrough, I would recommend that you start off with a Hunter. He is he's a versatile fighter, and you can survive through the hard mode with relative ease, depending on your level of experience. It's a good game for those who are starting off as. For your first foray into action RPGs, this is a good starting point in my book. But as I said, there are issues, as previously mentioned. Anyway, that's about it for options menu and DLC. That's what I have. Scenario mode will put you into... it's not an endless fight scenario, but you will be put into arenas with tougher opponents and have to fight with them for better gear and loot. And you will level up as you fight on. Never-ending story is basically endless mode, which will be unlocked once you finish the main story. So that's about it for the technical side of things. Let's go to the gameplay itself. As you can see, you're playing from a top-down perspective with a mouse and keyboard, and you just order your character to move along. And if you want to see something you don't like and want to get its resources, you just click on it and relieve them of their earthly possessions, as well as their general life force and time in the corporeal realm. As you can see, this is a pretty action-oriented game, as most action RPGs are. You run around the place and fight monsters to your heart's content. But unlike most action RPGs, there's a big difference. For one, you're not fighting solo. You have a ghostly companion called Lady Katarina who will follow you and level up with you as the story progresses. And as you fight more and more, you will get stronger and get better items and better equipment and powers to deal with monsters. So anyway, this is the sound design I was referring to. As you can hear, depending on the surface you're walking across, you will hear different sounds, different footsteps. The attacks you do will have a distinct slashing sound to them or impact sound to them, and the enemies will give off distinct grunts and yells as they fight you. Same goes for their magic missiles and such. And I have to give compliments to the developers. the amount of variation of enemies is pretty decent. As you can see, there are these small little bastards that keep placing bombs on you and running away. There are these agile mages who keep teleporting around the place and spam you with magical missiles, as well as... And there are also these big guys who can also teleport around the place and cause additional area of effect damages. I'm currently on, I won't say a distinct map, but I am currently visiting a city of Borgovia, which is heavily populated by Frankenstein-like monsters, mechanical soldiers, toy-like soldiers, and goblins who prefer to drop these bombs on me. If I was to visit a forest, I'd be attacked by I'd be fighting with werewolves, harpies, and such. So each area has a distinct enemies you have to fight with. Also, I've neglected to mention this in the options menu, but you can turn off enemy respawn if you wish to in the options menu. I think it's in the gameplay section. So if this is your first playthrough, I would recommend that you turn enemy respawns off. It's a good way to familiarize yourself with maps you're visiting, as well as... And there's also... Oh, Jesus. Mary, Mother of Joseph. It also helps you... Yeah, it helps you familiarize yourself with the territories you're visiting. And also gives you quite a decent way...
Healing potions.
Gives you a decent way of surviving encounters with your enemies. I'm not gonna fight right now. I'm gonna stand still and get killed, just so you can see. There's a unique way of dying in this game. I have to commend the developers. Well, I don't want to commend them too much, but dying is a pretty unique feature in the game. As you progress through the game, you will unlock certain perks, which are prestige. And depending on which perks you have unlocked, you will either be able to turn into a ghost and escape combat, which will reset your health and mana. But if you die a second time, you will have to pay a hefty fee of 10% for instant revive, or 5% of your currency to revive at the checkpoint. So consider how you fight your enemies and when you fight them. The nice thing about the game is the enemies do come in big groups, but if you're careful of your positioning, you will only trigger some of them, and you can avoid bigger fights without too much trouble or too much irritation. As you can see, I really hate these goblins because they're pretty fast. They'll just drop their payload and run away. So I don't have much time to actually do some damage to them. Thankfully, I did find a teleporter, so I can respawn at this location once I get killed and pay the fine. But yeah, this is pretty much the whole game. You run around, click on other creatures, and relieve them of their earthly possessions and their earthly time before they do the same thing to you. Let's see, that's the main focus of the game at the very least. But you also have a skill tree and a leveling up system, which lets you adjust your attributes from body, dexterity, willpower, and luck. And every one of them dictates a certain aspect of your fighting. For example, body will dictate how much health and damage output you can do with your basic attacks, while dexterity will increase your damage output with ranged weapons and also improve your dodging chances. Willpower, as the name suggests, is magic focused primarily, so it will increase your mana and magical damage, while luck will dictate how frequently you will get critical strikes, and as well as get better equipment. So as you can see, I have quite a number of points stacked into my dexterity and body, but I will put some points into my luck and willpower as well. Some items you have equipped will affect your attributes in general, so make sure your build is. Make sure you look up a build before you enter the game. I'm just making a one wild build without really checking anything, but I'm pretty sure I created an interesting build, all things considered. I hope I demonstrated that by killing Lady Katarina a couple of times already. Whenever she dies, she explodes, and that causes a massive damage output to most of my enemies. And thankfully, you can also upgrade Lady Katarina's attributes and skills as well. So she has her own skill trees, Blue Blood and General skills. Blue Blood skill tree is a DLC, unfortunately, so if you're just purchasing a regular version, you'll only have the general skill sets for her. In that case, I would recommend that you go for passive skill number 1 and passive skill Heal Me Up when I do damage. And if you can, purchase some of these Spirit Guardian and Gift of Resistance. Passive skills, they give you extra resistances to magical and elemental damage as well as physical damage. So while we're on the subject of Katarina, as you can see, she is your partner in crime, or heroism, depending on how you look at it. And she can carry some of your items for you, as well as go to your lair and secret lair and then sell them off for a decent sum of money. But here's an interesting part about Katarina. You can adjust her behavior to your own personal preference when you're in combat. You can adjust her combat orientation on her icon here as well, but if you want to be very specific with her tactics, go to her character sheet and activate it here. So I currently created her as a ranged specialist that focuses on vulnerable targets. I'm not giving her any health potions because she's a walking time bomb, basically, so she doesn't need potions, but if you want to keep her alive longer, you can set up her threshold for potion drinking. So once she passes a certain threshold of her health bar, she'll drink a potion. You can also adjust filter her item pickup. Item pickups she should focus on. For example, I have her picking up gold essence, magical essences, which are charms I can put on my weapons and armor, as well as specific armor types and other items, depending on their rarity. You can also set a value limit, which will dictate how much gold a certain piece of armor costs, and if it doesn't meet that requirement, Lady Katarina will not pick it up. Basically, if you want her to pick up expensive stuff, just put a price tag she has to look for. And once you send her to a city to get rid of unwanted items, you can also tell her to buy potions for health or mana, and tell her which quantity. And that's pretty similar with Van Helsing. Apart from just teleporting, he can teleport back to the city, but you cannot just send him off to a city and continue with Katarina. You have to manually go to a city and sell what you have in your inventory with him. But he also has 4 separate skill trees that you can upgrade to your own personal preference and build. And depending on how much points you invest into the skill tree, you'll get other passive bonuses such as health, resistances, and plus bonus to your body and willpower, for example. So the more points you invest into a specific skill tree, more passive bonuses it will grant you. But I would recommend that you try experimenting with your builds a bit. As you can see, I invested quite a lot into my Mystic Warrior, which is a melee build, but you can also put points into ranged build as well. Finally, you have tricks, which are magical spells you can cast at your own leisure. And there's auras. You can upgrade them to give yourself some passive abilities. I'm not very interested. I mean, they do give you good bonuses when you upgrade them a bit, but I put most of my points into my combat skills, so yeah, I'll probably just focus on the Mystic Warrior for now. And as you can see, the skill trees are not very big, but they do have a fairly decent amount of levels you can invest in. And the lower you get, the better the skill trees, but their cost is bigger as well. And depending on which level your skill is, the more effective the attack. So let's see, my cleave attack here is very weak, all things considered. I'll put some points into it just to show you, but yeah, it's depending on how many points you have in every skill, the damage output will be different. So let's, as you can see, my basic attacks will do 195 damage, while a cleave attack will just do a measly 83 damage. You'd think that the body attribute will dictate the bigger damage output, but no. You're stuck with this until you upgrade your character a bit more. So as you can see, the basic premise of the game is you're the descendant of Helsing, who fought Dracula, and you have to visit specific areas and deal with monster infestations, as well as crazy cultists and oh dear, crazy cultists, mages, monsters, and get better with your equipment as well as your skills. The more you fight, the more equipment you will get, and more money, as a matter of fact. And that's the basic premise of the game. Main gameplay. You take on quests from NPCs. You go and visit other city. You visit specific sections of the map, and then from there you can just you can turn those quests in for rewards, as well as extra experience. So for now, I'm just gonna. I don't want to ruin the whole story for you if you're interested in playing this, but I'm just gonna show you a bit of voice acting.
Such a charming place, isn't it?
Well, not much of voice acting here, but at least I can show you some of the Lair. As you can see, some characters are friendly and they will provide you with certain services. For example, you have merchants, you have mages or specialists that can reset your skill points at the very least, and then you can reapply them to a different skill tree. There's one who specializes for Lady Katarina, there's another one who specializes in my skill tree, and there are also characters that can imbue your weapons with... Actually, since we're here, I'm just gonna...
You brought me flowers. That's nice. It's a pity that they'll go straight into my boiling cauldron. Stay a little while and you can taste the magical potion.
I can hardly wait.
And the potions are ready. Which one would you like to taste?
Yeah. As you can see, the voice acting is really good in my book. Every quest will give you a different... will sometimes give you a choice between rewards, but most of them will just grant you experience, gold, and some unique items you can store into your storage for a different character. And in this particular case, I did... I get to choose, do I want extra... I could choose one of the potions for my own personal benefit, but I'm not sure if I want to sacrifice HP or mana. I mean, ability points will let me reclaim the lost health and mana, but
You know what?
for now I'm just gonna keep.
I'll pass.
I'll pass it
I
for
might
now.
turn into a frog.
Now I might regret this choice,
When
but
this is over, I want to open my own shop.
since we're here, I might as well give you a little demonstration of what essences and enchantments can do. As you can see, some items have these pink bars on them, which can be filled out with essences, which will grant you specific bonuses depending on what exactly you're equipping on them. So if I were to equip this on Profane Essence on an armor piece, I'll get extra extra defense. But if I put it on a weapon, I'll get extra mana. I'll get mana drain ability. And if I put it on a trinket such as a belt or a ring, or a cloak, I'll get plus 3 spell power. That's the basics of it. So you can visit vendors and enhance your weaponry in the lair, and also you can upgrade your lair with the blacksmith, who can
Can you smell the oil and the grease? Isn't it wonderful?
research additional traps for your lair as well. And for a cost, that is.
To the slot, and then it might work.
And you can also forge additional weapons and equipment, depending on item combinations you provide. Oh, okay, it seems like I have a nerf crack right now, so, right, I think I'll call it quits for now, but, yes, this is Van Helsing, at least the first game. The gameplay is solid. I do love the voice acting and the gameplay itself, and I nearly neglected to mention this, but, as you saw, I have a yellow bar next to my health and mana, which, depending on, which refills as you kill enemies, and once it's filled up, or as it fills up, you can actually spend those rage points into strikes. Depending on your choices, you can choose. But every attack has 3 strikes. You can enhance them with rage, and then deal extra damage with with the next strike. That's the basic premise of it. You can only refill your rage by killing opponents, and it slowly depletes as you're out of combat. Thankfully, the enemy AI and friendly AI has a bit of a, I won't say a broken, the script breaks on occasion, but sometimes enemies and allies do get stuck on foliage or other sections of the map, and then they're stuck there, and you can well at them at your own personal leisure. Let's see. There are some other minor issues I have neglected to mention. For example, hit detection and collision detection do tend to work in a weird way sometimes. For example, I'm clicking. I wanted to click. Okay, there's no item here, but let's say, for argument's sake, that there's an item here. Occasionally, Van Helsing will interpret my go pick up this item as a go a couple of feet in front of the item and don't pick it up for some weird reason. I mean, yeah, the argument is, there could be an argument that I just kept my movement button not closed, but pressed down, and he just continued to move, but I did release it. I clicked the area once, so I have no idea why is this happening. Also, the game has a tendency to freeze up or crash on certain moments. There are no indicators why, but you might want to be careful of that if you see your game freezing up, because it will cause problems for you in the long. And thankfully, the game autosaves instantly, so even if the game crashes, you will be able to continue where you left off.
You know, I was thinking about the secret Lair.
It'll be the perfect hideout.
I was just thinking that some nice carpet could do wonders in this place.
Also, you can decorate your lair with traps, which will prevent any incoming attacks from enemies when they discover the lair itself. That's a plot point I don't wish to spoil when it happens, so I will avoid that one. But do try to invest in the lair as much as possible. You get money fairly easily, so go nuts with your spend, with your expenses when it comes to the game, when it comes to items and equipment as well as the lair. Okay, that about covers everything, I think. One thing you should know is, as I mentioned about the characters, they do get stuck on foliage and such. Same goes for Helsing on occasion, and sometimes certain parts of the terrain will become transparent, so you can see where you're going or where you're clicking. But sometimes this will not happen, and you'll just randomly click around the place and try to get out while the enemies are attacking you, and you cannot fight back. And when that happens, you're kind of screwed, unfortunately. So yeah, I think that about covers everything. You can switch weapons on the fly between your long-range weaponry and melee weaponry. And as I said at the beginning of the video, if you're interested in action RPGs, this game is it's a pretty decent game to start off with. It has a lot of quality of life mechanics that will help you learn the basics of action RPGs. The skill trees are simple, the attributes are divided into 4 categories, and they cover everything. You can also pick up most of the items around you just by walking over them or pressing a corresponding loot everything around the button, which by default is G, at least on my keyboard. So yeah, it's a pretty. The developers did have some quality of life ideas and the player's best interest in mind. I do not agree with their DLC practices, but yeah, as a whole, I think this game it's a pretty good action RPG for a beginner. You keep getting decent equipment as you fight through monsters and level up. You get interesting abilities and equipment. I kind of wish the game would let you use more of them in the quick bar, because as it is, I only have 4 spells I can use, and I can exchange them at my own personal preference whenever I choose to, but yeah. I kind of wish I had more on the fly. Also, the secondary default attack for, in this case, cleave, is also mana based attack, and it will drain your mana as it goes on. Anyway, that's about it. This is Van Helsing. Thank you very much for watching. My name has been Bedomy, and I'll see you next time. Good night.